All right, so my name's Blaine, and I believe the three most important things to understand about Confucianism is first, who Confucius himself is, second, um, what ancestor veneration is, and then third, what it means to be a Junzi. And so to start out with Confucius himself, that just kind of makes sense. You got to know who sort of the origin of the religion is. Without Confucius, there is no Confucianism. And Confucius, he lived a very interesting life. He was born not to a very noble family, but he ended up being able to advise to a lot of um, political leaders and whatnot. But none of these political leaders liked what he had to say because he basically always told them, you just have to do better. And so, anyway, and also because he couldn't get promoted since he didn't have any noble blood, he wasn't able to climb up the political ladder. So eventually, when he was kind of older in life, he just retired and he ended up teaching to a bunch of students all he had learned and all he knew, the wisdom he had about what it takes to be a good leader. And all of his followers, they wrote that down, and those sayings and those words is what became essentially the Confucius doctrine. And so, of course, he's important because without Confucius, um, the religion doesn't exist and, well, it doesn't happen. But one of the most interesting things that he talked about is ancestor veneration. And the reason I think it's so important to understand is because it's so different than how other religions go about their religious practices, right? Because, of course, no religion is created in a vacuum. Um, they're always influenced, they always have elements of other religions in them. But that being said, the Catholic Church its practices are very Catholic, and the Buddhist practices are very Buddhist, and Hindu practices are very Hindu. But what's interesting about the Confucius religious practices is the ancestor veneration. It had existed for a long time before Confucius came around, and he didn't really modify or change it or say, "Oh, this is how we're gonna do it to be good Confucians." He basically said, "No, just keep doing what you're doing. It's a good thing." And so it's this interesting thing that people who do practice ancestor venerations, or sorry, people who do practice Confucian values, they practice ancestor veneration not because it's a uniquely Confucian value, but just because um it was a separate sort of thing people were doing, and Confucius said, keep doing that. And it's also interesting because the other religious practices, right? Um, divination and the shamanism, Confucius said to stop doing that. He said they were bad, basically that they were barbaric and uh, beneath any practicing Confucius person. So anyway, understanding the importance or the uniqueness rather of ancestor veneration and how it relates to Confucianism, I think is really important because it's so different and so unique when you compare it to other religions and how their spiritual practices work. And the last thing I wanted to talk about is what a Junzi is. Because it's basically the ideal state you want to be as a Confucius person, right? There are three values that go into it. There's Rin, which is humaneness. It's kind of like just having decency, basically. Then you have Li, which is ritual propriety. And then you have Zhao, which is filial piety. And these three things all play into it. Um, the better you are practicing them, the better you'll become at being a Junzi. And you want to be a Junzi because you want to promote and to help the universe have like social and political harmony. That's kind of the main goal of Confucianism, right? When Confucius lived, there was a period of turmoil, the Warring States period, where there was a lot of unrest. And so the goal, essentially, of his philosophy, of his religion, is how do we get back to that political and social harmony? And what he decided is people becoming Junzis, these perfected, profound ones, That's how we're going to do it, sort of starting on an individual basis. And so it's important to know, um, because well, you got to know the goal of the religion, right? Why would you want to do any of this stuff he says? What's the purpose of it? Well, you want to become this perfected, profound person, a Junzi.